nova. I say yeah, 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 yeah. I got a chunga, yeah. Daddy does marijuana, daddy smokes marijuana, daddy's got a chunga, yeah. My daddy rode Don Quixote, daddy rode El Coyote, daddy's got a chunga, yeah. I say no, 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 no more tequila, no. I say yeah, 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 yeah. I got a chunga, yeah. Mama swims in Argentina, mama's got a chunga, yeah. My mama swims in Venezuela, mama likes Cinderella, mama's got a chunga, yeah. I say hola, hola. My mama cooks in Italy, mama swims in Argentina, mama's got a chunga, yeah. My mama's working in Venezuela, mama likes Cinderella, mama's got a chunga, yeah. I say hola, 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 bossa nova. I say yeah, 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 yeah. I got a chunga, yeah. Daddy does marijuana, daddy smokes marijuana, daddy's got a chunga, yeah. My daddy rode Don Quixote, daddy rode El Coyote, daddy's got a chunga, yeah. I say no, 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 no more tequila, no. I say yeah, 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 yeah. I got a chunga, yeah. Mama swims in Argentina, mama's got a chunga, yeah. My mama swims in Venezuela, mama likes Cinderella, mama's got a chunga, yeah. I say hola, hola.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Planet Lizzdom. I am Lizzdom, your host. I am also an artist, and I'm so happy to see you guys today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. Planet Lizzdom is a place and a platform for artists, entertainers, entrepreneurs, and creators, very much like yourself. And, I'm so happy to bring you wonderful guests every week, from up-and-coming artists to established artists as well. And really, the point of this show is to show not only how we are surviving, but also thriving. And this week's guest is such a special treat. I'm so excited to tell you that he is what I would consider to be a very established artist and a very iconic and legendary person in their right and mine, in my opinion. And there's someone who hails from Cincinnati. This person has starred in shows like Netflix's The Toys That Made Us. I don't know if that's piquing your curiosity yet, but what his true claim to fame is that he is the principal conceptual designer for Kenner's line of Star Wars back in the 70s. And, this is the time that I want you guys to tune in, turn on, and take part and bring your comments tonight, because I have the one and only amazing artist and fantastic human being, Jim Swearingen. Everybody give him a warm and Wookiee welcome. Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so great. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. That's my pleasure.
I've had people all day, messaging me already. My friend Shannon is just freaking out. She's so happy to see you. You are amongst a lot of artists who really love what you do. A good chunk of us grew up in the 70s. But for those who may not know anything about you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, a little bit about myself. Well, I hail from Covington, Kentucky right now, right across the river from Cincinnati. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was an artsy kid all the way through till my high school years. And then I went to the University of Cincinnati in industrial design. And my first job coming out of school was with Kenner Toys.
That is so cool. And now I know we were talking about this last night. You said that, there was a progression to getting you there.
Yes. Well, I as a little kid, I was always at the art museum. Every Saturday morning, I would take art classes at the Cleveland Art Museum, painting and doing all kinds of things at the art museum. And I found out when I was 6 years old, apparently, my older brother, who was 9 years my senior, found out that he could drive the family car all day on Saturday if he took me to the art museum.
Ah.
He was the instigator for my interest in art. I had a great grandmother, I think, that was a painter. And then as I got into high school, I went to the Art Academy in Cleveland. And then eventually I had an art teacher that said, if you want to make a living as an artist, you might consider industrial design, which I'd never heard of at the time. But it's a way of combining creativity and a little bit of design, designing products. I always saw myself either as an architect or a car designer, but I eventually made my way into toys.
I'm always so interested in Genesis moments. Did you have a moment where you realized, this is something that I'm really into?
Well, the great thing about toys is that every year you have to come up with new stuff. Kenner had to refresh their line by about 50% of the line was new every year, which is a challenge because you have to come up with new ideas. And, I always tell people, my spaceships always flew. Didn't have to worry too much about the physics. And bridges and stuff didn't. I would never want to trust myself designing a bridge, but I can build one for toys and stuff. So.
I love that concept. I love that, spaceships can fly.
Yeah,
It's very true.
no problem.
Well, do you find that you're still compelled by the power of imagination?
Oh yeah, I don't do as much of it anymore, but I do enjoy it. I love all the Star Wars movies. Everybody asks me which is your favorite, but I don't get into the critiques that some people do. And
Okay.
I love to watch. I think science fiction is probably my favorite genre, but it's always fun. Today I was watching something on. I just finished The Alien.
Oh, cool.
It was
Like
just
the original Alien?
the original one.
Oh, yes. So
Yeah.
good.
And I got to meet Hans Geiger when we were considering doing the first Alien back in 78, 79. So
No way.
yeah, he's as weird as his artwork.
Do you ever find you meet an artist and they're not quite as weird as you were hoping?
No, well, I don't know that I've met very many weird artists, I guess, because they don't seem so weird when you're from a creative point of view. But
That's true. That's true.
you have a little more you give them a little more license than other people. So
That's true. I find when you have a creative brain, at least in my experience, when you have a creative brain, you're just open to so much more. Something that I was reading about you, and that you had discussed with my boyfriend when he had done an interview with a little while ago, was that in I think The Empire Strikes Back, you had been able to go to set,
yeah,
to look at the Hoth and the whole ice planet, but you were not allowed to take photos.
no, we were. It was more at that time they were still in the middle of shooting, but we were there to glean information, and I was supposed to remember everything I saw. So
How do you commit that to memory like that?
Yeah, it was we kind of mental pictures, and at the point in preliminary design, we didn't have to have all the details nailed down, so it was much easier. I could come up with ideas from that. But it was pretty impressive to go to Elstree Studio and see the ice planet and the whole, all the stuff. I saw Yoda, and got to see Tauntauns, and so that was pretty exciting. For at that point, I was almost 30 years old.
Oh my goodness, you must have been like a kid.
Yeah, it was great fun, and you get getting to see the real, the behind the scenes stuff is pretty cool.
Did they let you touch any of it?
Well, I don't remember touching, but I probably did. I mean, we can't not.
I mean, you got the Tauntaun right there.
I didn't get to ride one.
Did you get to go inside one?
No. We didn't know that part of the storyline, but it is they had, the animated ones, which are about 18 inches tall, and then they had practical ones so that you could actually sit on them. But they were still shooting, so they didn't want anybody getting on anything. But
of course. Oh, yeah. Imagine you broke the Tauntaun.
Yeah, that would be a bad idea.
So I think that's just so marvelous that you could go onto set and commit it to memory. I mean, you must have felt like a police sketch artist afterwards, trying to, describe to yourself what you saw.
Yeah. Well, that was part of my job, was coming up with, that kind of stuff. So it was the reason they took a designer along instead of just the marketing people.
Of course. Well, and that's so smart to do, because, you are going to think in a very different capacity.
Yeah.
And I love that you, if I remember correctly, you were designing Fisher Price's Adventure People.
No,
no. What am I thinking here?
In the very beginning, back in 77, after we did some presentation drawings, we had to come up with mock-ups for the characters. I needed something dimensional. So I went out looking, and just by chance, Fisher Price Adventure People were 3 3/4 inches tall, so they were the perfect size. And at the time, when I read the script and we were brainstorming stuff, the X-wing and TIE fighter, the dog fights that were described in the script were the play I could see kids going after. So I needed something small enough because at the time GI Joe was still 12 inches tall and
That's right.
$6 million man. So those scales were too big to do X-wings and TIE fighters. So
Right. I got it mixed up. I was remembering the size that I had read about.
yeah, it was
That's right.
because it was convenient and they were already articulated. So I did what I describe as body putty and X-Acto sculpting to turn them into the characters so that we could show them in 3D.
That is so cool. I mean, the playability of that size is that you can carry it in your pockets. You can really turn any environment into, a storyline.
You can collect them.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember taking little figurines and playing with them on, the windowsill of the car in the back seat. The sizes was absolutely perfect.
Yeah. So.
And I was that kid that, I borrowed all of my neighbor's Star Wars toys, and sometimes I gave them back, sometimes I didn't.
Did you have a brother?
I did. I have an older brother. He's actually watching tonight. Hi, Chris. He is so stoked that you're here. Oh my gosh. He actually introduced me to Star Wars. He let me have his Star Wars bed sheets.
Oh.
I actually got to see The Empire Strikes Back in the theater because he's 7 years older than me, and we took him for his birthday. And I think I was all of maybe 6 years old, and I still remember Darth Vader's mask coming off and being traumatized by that. Donna wanted to say the scaling is for perfect play. Absolutely. She's also asking, did you ever imagine that something like the little Jawa cape would be such a monumental collectible?
Oh, we were designing toys. We weren't actually designing collectibles, but now that's all, that's the thing. What little collection I have is because some collectors got together and got me the first 12. With all the 40 years, too many birthdays and Christmases came by, and what I did have ended up in presents for somebody else's kids.
Aw. Now I have to ask, are you that person that keeps everything in plastic, or do you take it out and play with it? The toys. I
do get some of them out. I'm not one of those. The only things I put in cases are, I have an X-Wing and a TIE fighter that I gave my mother, and she never played with them. So I got those back and put them in acrylic cases. And I have a few, what do they call them, customs that people have made for me. And I put those in cases. But I have lots of loose figures. And I have a Death Star that's little by little being populated by new characters.
Oh, cool.
But I think they should be played with. I appreciate collectors, and I've seen some incredible ones. I did over the last weekend. It was the passion that people have for collecting is just astounding.
It is remarkable. I always joke, but it truly is, it's kind of like plastic crack. Like everybody really wants that piece of their childhood, and they want a new piece as well. Dan's asking about the original Star Wars set. Kenner must have been a great place to work. He really liked you on the Toys That Made Us.
Yeah. Well, Kenner was a great place. I don't know, toys in some respects, industrial designers look down a little bit on toy people, but the thing about it is it's like a fashion industry. So you do get to play with a lot of stuff. I wasn't exclusively on Star Wars, but I worked on, earlier than that, I did $6 Million Man. And my very first projects were designing Play-Doh and Spirograph. I even worked on the Easy Bake Oven, trying to update it. And so I've worked on all kinds of stuff.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So.
Like this $6 Million Man?
Yep.
I love that you can see through his eye.
I gave him his bionic eye.
I think that is the coolest thing ever. Like I can actually see the whole screen right now looking through his bionic eye. That is so neat.
Yeah, that was what I turned over to production design was a G.I. Joe head that I cut a big hole in the back of and carved his eye out and then put a door peephole through the back of his head.
That is so clever.
in production design, they had to figure out how to make the optics work because you only have an inch, and had to figure out how to adjust the optics.
That's true. Well, they did a great job with it because it's really clear and there isn't too much of a fisheye.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. And they used it again. Actually, somebody was pointing it out that I'd completely forgotten. It's in the 12-inch Boba Fett, the original one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I heard somewhere that Boba Fett is probably one of your favorite Star Wars characters.
Yeah, I was, the good part of it was I was in on this. It was a super secret project, so it had to come back into preliminary design because the other design areas were a little too public. So I got to go out and photograph the very first costume, and then come back and kit bash the model that we used for a lot of presentations and packaging and stuff. So
that's very cool. Now, for those who may not know what it is to kit bash, what exactly does that mean?
Well, the very first figures we took the Fisher-Price people and cut them up and made them into other characters. Kit bashing for Boba Fett was I could take parts from the body of the Boba Fett was a C-3PO. The head was carved from a Darth Vader. The arms were stormtroopers that I modified, and the legs were from another character. So I could assemble them, and then again with body putty and an X-Acto knife, we made mock-ups of what the character was. And then I sacrificed one of my Japanese robot toys for the rocket firing mechanism for the first model.
Oh, wow.
So it's you find pieces and put them together to make into a toy. So a lot of it, like if you go to Disney World and go to the Galaxy's Edge, the Millennium Falcon is a treasure hunt. People can actually look around on the outside of it because there's a toy Millennium Falcon on their model. So it's hidden in all the details. So they kit bash that Millennium Falcon.
That's so cool.
It's not easy to find.
No, not at all. But now I want to go find it. Napoleon Wilson, he was actually my first guest on this show. He's saying that there's a kit bashing community in Toronto. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I've met people to do customs and kit bashing on. We did it when we were doing ships and stuff. When you need some kind of little detail and stuff, but not for production, but for preliminary design stuff, we'd pick up stuff from model kits and stuff. The original Death Star, the preliminary model of the Death Star cannon was kit bashed from airplane parts and little pieces and gewgaws and stuff that made it look kind of like the one in the show, but it was just to get the idea across and not necessarily the production stuff.
Of course. Do you find that kit bashing helps you come up with a design, or do you kit bash based on a design that you've already come up with?
I think it can go both ways. It's a quick way to get somewhere. And when you're not doing production, you can take a lot of shortcuts, and it just is an easy way to demonstrate what you want the thing to look like. And at the very beginning of Star Wars, we didn't have very much detail. They had sold the idea, and we were kind of crashing along with things, trying to get them going. But in the meantime, I was putting together lists of things that I needed photographs of and drawings and stuff. So
that's right, because you were, I think if I remember my research correctly, you said that you had read the script, which included black and white photographs from the set and concept art of the TIE fighters and X-Wing fighters and some sort of idea of what it was supposed to look like.
Yeah, but they didn't have, they had not, done top and bottom and side views of anything. So that was all stuff we had to come up with later on. But it was so, and in preliminary design, we weren't really pressed for that. But once the contracts were signed and we had to get into production, it became a lot more critical. So I got, made trips out there to get more information and got to go through drawings and take photographs.
No, and that's amazing. I mean, growing up with toys, it never really occurred to me how much work would go into what I was playing with.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I get to know Mysterion, and the more I speak with you, the more I'm learning that there is so much preparation and so much planning and so much editing. Was there a particular toy where it felt like a never-ending edit?
Well, I can't say any one toy, but they all were. They all took a certain amount of finagling. We had to adjust proportions to fit our price points. Our first TIE fighter, my first X-wing, retailed for about somewhere between $15 and $20, and the current ones are all $50 or $60. Some are $100. So it's like a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely. And now that was $15 then, or
then? I don't know what that would be now, but
yeah,
we
probably
were
60.
Yeah. So they had, and the newer ones, they had a lot more latitude about making them more accurate than we were. But the things that were most challenging were just getting enough information so that we could put things together, like the Death Star playset and stuff. We saw some pictures, black and white photographs, but didn't have much more. And we hadn't seen the movie yet, so.
Oh my gosh, that's right. You had not seen the movie yet.
Yeah, all the work that I did on Star Wars initially was done. We probably read the script in February. We put together a presentation for 20th Century Fox in mid-March. My first trip out to LA just to go look at blueprints and photographs and stuff was in the beginning of April.
Okay.
And then the movie, was opening in mid-March or mid-May. May. So we were working, against deadlines because we were not going to have product out until 1978.
That's right. Actually, I have a commercial from 1978.
Ooh.
If I am correct, I believe that is for this line right here. Let me play it for a second.
Star Wars. You and your children loved it. Now the Earthlings at Kenner have asked my associate and me to present the Star Wars collection. Truly remarkable toys and games for your children. What are you so excited about now? My goodness, the Star Wars TIE Fighter and X-Wing fighter. Now your children can relive our great space battles or collect our wonderful Star Wars companions with Kenner's Star Wars action figures. R2, it's a little you. Kenner's new radio-controlled R2-D2 anyone can command. The Star Wars land speeder that moves like it's floating. And here's Kenner's Death Star space station, 4 floors of action. A trash compactor, too. Listen, R2, that's the Star Wars electronic laser battle, a game of speed, reflex, and reaction. These and other toys and games in Kenner's Star Wars collection are sold separately. Batteries are not included. May the Force be with you and your children.
Oh, I do hope that you two did me right. Sorry. I'm pretty sure that was the commercial for the toy line from the 70s.
Yeah.
78.
Probably for Christmas.
I think so, because based on all the things that I'm reading, they really wanted to kind of capitalize it as best they could, but there was that whole timing issue and lots of pressure. And I mean, obviously it went off like gangbusters, because here we are, how many years later, talking about it still.
Yeah, I don't know that there were many movies before Star Wars that lasted more than a year in the theater in first run. We were, and no one had a true sense that it was going to happen that well. But it was, we were opened in May of 25, May 25th, and then the next May 25th, people were still going to see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am that person that goes to see an amazing film more than once in the theater for the experience,
Yeah.
Now, you actually got to see, I think, the first screening of it.
I did. The first First public screening. I got to go to the market research screening on May 1st, so 3 weeks before it opened in the theater. And I flew out to San Francisco. I was the only one from Kenner that was going there, so I got to stay for the first time in San Francisco, which was a big, do Fisherman's Wharf and all that stuff. Unfortunately, by myself, but the next morning I got up and found the movie theater, and there was 300 and some people were invited for market research. So they had men and women and boys and girls and different age groups and stuff. And they were invited to see a movie called Alaska. And they were, told that they would have to fill out a questionnaire afterwards. So, go into the theater. It was the first THX sound system.
Oh, yeah.
And they put new bulbs in, it wasn't digital. It was all done with film, and they put new bulbs in the projectors, made sure everything was 100%, and made sure there was nice temperature and the place had been cleaned and everything was perfect. And then when Star Wars pops on the screen, it was kind of, people are a little confused because it's like, what I thought we were seeing Alaska, and then the crawl started. And I tell people, you can kind of tell in the audience that there's a number of people that read out loud.
Oh,
so you hear a little bit of like murmur from the people reading, and then when the princess ship comes by and the pew pews start, and as the destroyer comes overhead, and as it keeps coming, once the engines are in view, the subwoofers that they'd installed in the thing, you can feel the engines in your I say in the seat of your pants. But it was, and then we're off for another 2 hours of really excitement, and then at the end, the Death Star blows up and people are out of their seats cheering. It's like, it was just amazing. And I tell people it's the only virgin audience, because they really had not done very much PR. And unless you really had been looking for it, these were people that, had come to see a movie. They weren't sure they were going to see the best movie of the year. But the next day, I got to see it the next day with the press. And
cool.
Down in, got to drive on the Paramount Studios. If people remember I was just watching Sunset Boulevard, and the gates where you drive in, and there's a guy that has a clipboard and all that stuff. I got to do that a couple of times, and I went in, and the theater had already gone dark, and I walked in and watched it with the press. They did not jump up and scream, but like the other people. But from the next day, then all the press had started. So by the 25th, 3 weeks later, everybody was expecting. The anticipation was building. So those two viewings were just amazing. And I tell people when I was in San Francisco, I had to find a payphone to call back to Cincinnati and say, I saw the best movie and you should have been here. You can't imagine. So no cell phones. I couldn't pick up the cell phone there. I had to find a payphone.
Oh my gosh, you're right. I mean, and you probably had to wait in line for someone to finish, and you're fumbling for a dime, and you're shaking and freaking out.
Yeah. So.
I'm always fascinated by this notion of living history. Was there any point during that experience that you realized I'm part of something really big?
Yeah, I was, because I've been living with it for a couple months, and then to see it finally come together, it was really, it's indescribable. I was a witness to that, the virgin audience. It was just like, you knew that there was something beyond what we were expecting, but nobody really knew how big it was going to become. And that 40 years later, I'd be talking to people about the good old days.
which is just phenomenal. Oh, this is my brother, Chris. Chris, this is Jim. Jim, this is Chris. He's saying, my father took me to see Star Wars at the University Cinema in Toronto. I was 8 and was blown away. Had several friends who ended up getting lots of Kenner toys from the movie. And he says, a big thanks to you and the teams of people who worked to give such great tactile outlet for imaginative play. Well, thanks, Chris. And I borrowed a lot of his Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
Actually, my friend Mars actually has a really great question for you. He's saying, what's the biggest collector item you've made, and what would you say it is worth today?
Well, the thing that the most recent thing, I think the Boba Fett, the 3 3/4 inch Boba Fett, is probably the biggest item. I think the last one sold for $160,000. It was a pre-production prototype. I did not sell it. I gave one away, and I sold one years and years ago. But that's the biggest ticket item, toy item. And then I only know of one prototype that probably would fetch a very hefty sum that I don't have either. I know where it is, but and it's not in a collector's collection. But there are a few, people are collecting prototypes from back in the old days. So, and I was too straight arrowed to actually borrow things from Kenner, so I never really latched on. I have a few little collectible things, but and people collect I tell people I recycled a whole box of my business cards, which now are selling for unusually large sums for a business card. I unfortunately recycled mine.
Well, I mean, as artists, we don't always value our own tools, per se. Here's my card, give me a call, because I think that's really neat that people do want to collect that, because it is a part of you.
Yeah.
You and I were talking last night that you befriended and became friends with the actor who played you in The Toys That Made Us in Netflix.
Yeah.
And that, you're now a footnote on Wikipedia and IMDb for him playing you.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. I just posted on my public page on Facebook. He's in a play called Count of Monte Cristo in New York. So I sent out a note to my Facebook people that if they're in New York to look it up. So I'm trying to I'm using my power of push to get people into the audience for this show he's on. So
absolutely,
it's really kind of fun.
Well, and I really admire that you want to support and promote your friend. I think that's so important. Guys, go to Google, look for the Count of Monte Cristo, New York City Hudson Outdoor Theater. I think those keywords will help you find him, because he did a really great job portraying you in The Toys That Made Us.
There are people that thought it was me, but how'd they get that film from back then? It's like it didn't. And I hadn't seen what they were doing, because I knew they were in production, and they talked about reenacting my first visit to ILM, but I didn't know how they were going to do it. But then I'm like, and I actually tuned in when Facebook dropped, and I was watching it, and I got to the part where they were interviewing me, and then I realized what they had done, so I had to back up and watch it again so that I could see what they had actually put together, because they had 3 actors reenacting that first visit.
Oh.
So it was pretty cool.
That is really cool. Was there a specific point in your story that you wanted to make sure that they did present?
No, it was really up to them. Although we had done during the interviews and stuff, that we'd done a lot of talking, and they picked up on the first visit, because the line in the Toys That Made Us, which kind of allowed me to get the exact point, the date that I actually visited, is that when we're coming, the two actors are coming in, and they say, "Oh, too bad you weren't here yesterday. We were blowing up the Death Star." It actually happened. They were doing the explosions of the Death Star model using out in the parking lot. So I missed that. So I could actually pinpoint what was the day I actually visited. So they reenacted that part. So that, because I was meeting the some of the film people and watch dailies and stuff. So it was kind of fun. It was, they in talking, they thought, oh, that'd be cool. We could do that. We just need 3 actors and some pictures from ILM, and we can put that together. So.
No, that is so cool. I mean, it must have felt very surreal to watch your story on Netflix,
Well, when they had to back up and see what was that they did. So, I backed up, and then my husband was downstairs. So I stopped and I said, hey, you got to come and see this, because they didn't tell me what they'd done. So it was kind of like, you can't believe this. They actually have someone playing me.
I know. I always ask every artist, like, who would you get to play you in your biopic, that sort of thing, Did you, at any point growing up as an artist, did you ever imagine that?
No, that's too far, as a designer, a toy designer, you end up being pretty much behind the scenes, until now. I mean, we, when people like the fellow that did Plastic Galaxy, or when the Netflix thing got put together, they're now, giving more exposure to all the people that, actually brought those things out. They're doing a series of toy stores, series of the toy stores that made us, and they're doing the movies that made us.
Yes.
So they're doing all kinds of stuff that they kind of showing behind the scenes, which, it takes a little bit, I don't know, it may take a little bit of the magic out of it, but collectors and stuff are really enthusiastic about meeting people. So
it's true. Well, I mean, I find, again, as an artist for myself, I actually watched the Movies That Made Us episode of Ghostbusters last night. And it did add a really interesting element to knowing the story behind it. Mm-hmm. I do appreciate all of the work that goes into Industrial Light and Magic, and I'm trying to remember the name of the team that did their movie, but the amount of artistic wizardry that goes into making anything is just so fascinating to me. Looking at your toys and playing with your toys, growing up with your toys. I was that kid that would look at the details in the leg and the arm and the face detail and try to imagine, how did they do that? Because I didn't know about plastic molding or die cast or any of these things. I didn't understand articulation or any of that. I just understood that I really liked looking at it and playing with it.
Yeah.
And I think the last time I heard you do an interview, you made this wonderful quote that toys are not toys until they're played with, I think. A toy is not a toy until it's played with once. Open it up and let it breathe. Is that your quote?
I don't remember that, but that is true. We intended all that stuff to be, blown up and played with, and dolls are designed to have their hair done or taken or cut off or whatever. I mean, they're really, that's what they're intended to do.
Oh, and absolutely.
All the other stuff, the ones that survived and are being collected, are the survivors.
Yeah, the ones that survived. It's true. True story. I actually gave my Barbie a haircut, a mohawk specifically, and I didn't like it. And I thought, oh, that's okay. It'll grow back. It did not grow back.
No. We tried to make that happen.
Okay. Well, I also learned that doll's hair is not entirely, like a doll's head is not entirely covered in hair. There are pathways.
Yes. No. Yeah. When I was somewhere along the way, I've seen them how they root hair, how they actually do it. It's the scariest process you've ever seen.
It is frightening, but so exciting at the same time. There's an artist by the name of, and I think I have it correct, Hexian on Facebook that I follow, who will dismantle a Barbie doll and do what you would call kit bashing with different appendages and things to turn this doll into a different creature. And they will take out the hair and then replace it with yarn or something and comb it out and do all these weird styles with it and makeup. And it's just remarkable what you can do.
Yeah, I was in a Chinese factory years ago working on something for Hasbro, and it was a baby doll size head, which is pretty, they do little tiny ones like Barbie and stuff. But I was in this room with all these young women. You have basically a ball, and it has a hole in the bottom, and the rooting machines have needles. Some of them, that long are my hands. They're 6 or 8 inches long, and they hold on to the head, and this needle comes up through the bottom, through the inside, and they're rotating their hands, and they're not even looking. They're talking to one another, and there's a rooting pattern that they've memorized, and they can do it just by feel. And this needle is flying up and down. It's the scariest thing. It was like, you kind of, it's interesting to watch, and then I have to turn away because I don't want to see anything that might, because I can just imagine this needle it was just awful. But
you don't really stab themselves in the hand or something?
Yeah, why? Because they're like looking at each other and talking, just like, and they're doing this other stuff without even looking. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's crazy stuff that goes on in toys. But I could tell other stories. But,
I would love to hear other stories. I mean, as someone, as a designer for toys, is it normal for you to go to the factories all the time?
Yeah, pretty much. Somebody usually goes over. The big toy companies have teams that that live in China or the other countries where they do stuff. Once in a while, you go over just to check in and see what they're doing. Plus, it's good to see what you're asking people to do, see how it actually works. Like when you're doing dolls and making vinyl rotocast heads, people are. I was in China. It was like August, and it's like here now, 80, 90 degrees outside, and people are basically working in blast furnaces.
Oh man!
Moving molds in and out of a blast furnace to make doll heads and stuff, making My Little Ponies. So it's you get an appreciation for what you're asking people to do.
Absolutely. I loved My Little Pony as a kid. It never occurred to me that was how it was made.
Yeah. It's one of those processes. Most of the toys, the first toys for Star Wars were all, some of the parts were molded in China, but they were all assembled here in Cincinnati.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, X-Wings and TIE Fighters, they were assembled and packaged here.
Wow. That is really interesting.
You can go online and see photographs if you Google Kenner manufacturing Star Wars. I think you can probably come up. You can see people with power screwdrivers hanging from the ceiling, and they're screwing together the X-Wings and TIE Fighters. So the manufacture was done right here in America. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Man, Christmas must have been amazing in their households.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that just recently came out, Mr. Aaron wanted me to show you this. It's The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But he wanted to say that yours is better.
Well, I love The Mandalorian show. It's terrific.
It's wonderful. There's a season 3 coming out.
Yeah, the technology is so far advanced to see that kind of stuff. It's they're able to do cinematic stuff for television, and the whole it's amazing how much of it is actually virtual when you're watching the show, and you don't really realize it until you're it's just seamless to see them.
It's true. Well, I mean, that is the power of, imagination, that your suspension of disbelief is such that you do forget that it is virtual.
Yeah, it's
No.
really amazing. They've really come a long way, and it's not all green screen. They have like walls of LEDs.
Yeah.
It's just astounding.
It still blows my mind, and I find the way the technology is made, it stands up.
Yeah.
I was watching a little bit of Lord of the Rings the other day, and it still looks really good.
Yeah. And now they could, the new technology, they can do it a lot easier than they used to. I mean, when you look at Star Wars, there was a combination of practical and some animation and stuff, but it was far more difficult to do than it is now. Like the walkers in Empire Strikes Back out in the snow, those are miniatures in stop motion, and when you look at it, it really holds up. And considering it was 40 years ago,
it really does. Do you find do you still like stop motion? Because I know for me, I still love it.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell when they're using it and when they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see a tauntaun running across the snow, that's all done, stop motion.
Absolutely. I just like Donna, I really, really enjoyed it. I did a lot of stop motion in college, and I have a great appreciation for how much work goes into it, because it's not just, the frames per second and the movement that you're considering, but it's also the three-dimensional object that you're working with. And especially if it's in the air or flying, like, it's just fantastic. And you're right, Dan, Star Wars is the best. It is the best. Something that Donna was also wanting to ask you is, what was your favorite design outside of Star Wars since that you've worked on?
Gosh, that's a head scratcher. Outside of Star Wars, well, I got the good thing is that I got to work on a lot of variety of stuff. I did do some design work of play sets and stuff for Strawberry Shortcake, which is also about 35 or 40 years ago. And I'm trying to think, outside of Kenner and Hasbro, while we were, we had a small consulting company. We worked on Pirates of the Caribbean, which is pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We did for a company called Zizzle, which I don't think is around anymore. We designed a pirate ship. I can't remember the name of it. What's the black something or other? Black Pearl.
The Black Pearl.
Which actually won a toady at Toy Fair, which is toy industry prize for design and execution. So it won a toady. So
nice. Cool. Do you have like a little display case of awards that you've received?
No, they're all put away. We don't have that many. I just saw one of my business partners over the weekend, and we were talking to somebody, and we actually won an award, local award for one of the advertising businesses here for a pirate ship that we did for Fisher-Price. So we've probably won more awards for pirate ships than anything else.
I love it. Yarr.
So whatever, I don't know the date, somewhere in October, November, there's Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Oh, I love it. I talk like a pirate all the time. What do you call a creative pirate?
There's a special day. I can't remember what it is, but it's in October, I think, where you're supposed to, do a lot of yargs.
Oh, I love it.
So.
Now, I always like to ask this of established artists, because, you do come to the table with a wealth of knowledge and a lot of experience. To someone who wants to get into designing toys, what advice would you give them?
Well, I do promote the University of Cincinnati. It is one of the places that toy companies do come to look for people for creative talent. But there are a number of schools around that teach. I think the Fashion Institute in New York has a toy design program, and there's a number of other universities that have industrial design programs. The ones that I like the most and think the most of are the ones that have some kind of co-op program. When I was at UC back in the 70s, it was a quarter system, and every 10 weeks you were either in school or working. So you got to actually experience design. So, and there are a number of universities that do that now. And get, that way you get the experience that you can explore some other areas. I was really lucky. I got to design car interiors for GM, and I went over to Europe and worked with Philips, Norelco, and then the last couple were with the toy company. And that's when I kind of decided that the toy business would be fun to do. And turned out it was really a lot of fun. But those kinds of things, if people are interested in animation, the Ringling School in Florida is terrific.
Very cool. Okay.
And my business partner's son, his name, I'll give him a plug, Patrick Osborne. He won an Academy Award for a short called Feast.
Okay.
And he I think he just won I don't know what they call it. It was in Cannes. Feast was featured at Cannes in France, and then he just did this project with a school during COVID and did an animation with some kids. But he went to the Ringling School, and it's a terrific place. That and Cal Arts are probably the two big ones. But he's worked for all the major animation. Now he's on his own. He's doing projects. I just saw he promoted Billie Eilish is coming out with a new album, I think, and part of that is an animated thing. He got to work with her at the Hollywood Bowl like 6 nights at the Hollywood Bowl with Billie Eilish and the LA Philharmonic.
Wow.
So there's a clip of it on Facebook, but it's like wild stuff. So
please remind me his name again. I want to put it up so everybody can Google him.
Patrick Osborne.
Patrick Osborne. I'm going to do this in real time. Please let me know if I've spelt it correctly, because I absolutely would like to look into what he's doing as well.
Yep, that's it.
Patrick Osborne. Check it out.
He worked for Disney and worked on one called Paperman. He was an animator on that, and then he directed Feast. And when he won the Academy Award, he had to go on his own. So he's out doing all kinds of projects, interesting stuff. I think on YouTube you can find one called what's it called? No, it's eluding me. But it's some really innovative animation stuff. But he's
very cool.
Terrific talent.
I'm really interested to check it out. I love discovering new artists. I am that artist that gets inspired by other people all the time. Yeah. So thank you in advance for telling me about him, because I am going to go check him out.
He's got some interesting work. He worked on a TV show. Again, I won't remember the name of it, but he animated a character that was a woman's like alter ego. Mm-hmm. Is this creature that she would be, only she could see the character, but it was always kind of busting her. It's like that's not really what you'd think. It was kind of fun.
Oh, that's
the last one season, but he animated the characters. It was kind of a live show with an animated character.
That's very cool. That's very, very cool. Now, for people who may have a toy that they want to have manufactured by a toy company, what would you recommend they do to approach that toy company?
Yeah, that's a toughie.
Yeah.
There are there are people out there that represent designers and stuff. I can't name any of them. I'm kind of out of that loop, but
Yeah.
Most of the major toy companies try to keep it a fairly small group of people that they actually talk to.
Okay.
But I've seen people promote their own stuff. I mean, I have a friend that came up with a card game and went out and got it manufactured and promoted it at Toy Fair, and that's another avenue.
That's true. That's true.
So there's a ways around that, but getting into the toy companies tends to be a little bit difficult than it. And since I'm out of it, I can't really tell you who's doing it.
Of course.
But I'm sure that, on the internet, you can find people that broker stuff. You just have to be careful that some of these invention houses that say, you have a great idea, come and tell us about it. Well, it's not always a really good idea to tell them anything. So
it's true. Well, how would you recommend people protect themselves as an artist? The poor man's copyright, where you mail yourself a copy or register a letter.
If you're really serious, you need to actually find an intellectual properties person to take care of it for you. Okay. And I know in Cincinnati, there are groups that, business groups that do that kind of work. Like there's, trying to think in Cincinnati what group we had talked to, but there are all over the country. There's creative people that get together and talk about things that we're probably getting reborn now that we're out of COVID, but there are business groups and incubators and stuff around that. And Cincinnati may be a little unusual because we actually had a toy company here, but they've long gone. Kenner left in 92, so
okay,
92, 93. So that kind of business group may or may not still be around.
But it is good to know that organizations like that do exist, because, as an artist, and there are a lot of young artists watching right now, you're so eager to get your idea out and you're so proud of it, but you need to be able to protect it as well.
Yeah.
Especially with the internet being the way it is. It is the Wild West.
Yes. And there are people out there that can rip you off.
Absolutely.
People come to me. I don't do that anymore. At one time we did a little bit of that, but it's a relatively small group that'll get into Hasbro and those kinds of people. If there's a company nearby, you can always ask them. I mean, it's not, but yeah, you do need to be careful, no matter whether it's art or design or toy, concept stuff. It's you can't go on Facebook and show anything.
Oh man, there are so many unscrupulous companies out there.
Yeah. So.
I've had quite a few friends who have their design ripped off, or a company out of the East, out of China or what have you, or anywhere has taken their design and made a fake account, and all of a sudden, this T-shirt that they're selling for $20, they're selling for $40, and they're not even giving them credit.
Yeah, it's
it's
a little dangerous, but
it's a little wild. But I think it is very good advice. Talk to an intellectual properties expert and see how you can protect yourself before you start throwing those ideas out there, for sure. I think it is very smart. I know with the internet, I am always recommending to my younger nieces and nephews, be careful what you post online, because what happens on the internet stays on the internet.
Yeah.
Once you put it out there, someone's going to, maybe take a screenshot of it or find a way to, use it to their advantage, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, as an artist, we were talking about how during COVID, there were moments where you were not interested in creating, and there were moments where you were interested in creating. What is on your radar? Is there any projects that you are looking forward to doing in the future?
Well, I'm really looking forward to traveling.
Okay.
Out of town a little more. Before COVID, we had the advantage of flying, going to fly around, I really miss being able to go and be new places and seeing people, meeting new people and stuff. But from a creative standpoint, I have to admit I'm not very good at motivating myself to do art. I should be turning around and going to my drawing table and do drawings and stuff. But I'm pretty content. We just moved into a much smaller condominium, and I'm kind of crammed in space. But I'm enjoying my little. I tell people I'm a small C celebrity now, so I do enjoy talking to people like you and going to Comic-Cons and getting out that way. But I don't chain myself to a desk very often.
Nor should you. You have worked very hard and created some amazing things. I mean, I think at this point, you're creating because you want to.
Yeah.
No. Are there any, you're saying that you're missing travel and you're going to go traveling again. Are there any places or, art museums or destinations that you haven't had a chance to go see yet that you really want to?
Well, I'd like to go back to some places, and I do. I love going to Paris. Greece is a beautiful place to go and see all the ancient stuff, and we actually Cincinnati is very lucky to have a very good art museum. So there's something handy, but they're all over. I'd like to go back to Amsterdam and go through the Rijksmuseum again. And I love going to culture. We're trying to plan a trip to Australia and New Zealand again.
Ooh, that would be nice.
And I've been places. Now it's just to go back. And there's some new, some places I haven't been. We were even trying to do an Antarctic trip.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend who works with an Antarctic travel company where they take people on a ship down to the edge of the ice, and you get to see the penguins and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Well, in February, we're returning to Hawaii, which we haven't been for a while. So we go and watch whales.
Oh, wow. That'll be really nice.
Very, kind of vegging out. We get up in the morning and have breakfast on a lanai and look out and watch whales. So.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that you called it a lanai. I have a lanai where all my birds hang out. It's the best. It's just it's the most relaxing place to be, do you find that you like to switch off from the internet and from the phone and from technology a lot?
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's nice to go to places where you don't have to be involved in that stuff. I had to listen to a discussion today about whether you should be on Facebook or not.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So it's, I still do that. I'm not very active at posting things, and I've gotten way out of. But I kind of keep in touch with people that way.
It's true. I found, for me, I use it, I use the internet for good, but I use it as a way to keep in contact with people who, because we all have different schedules. Some people are only available at 3 a.m. I'm not available at 3 a.m, but I want to keep apprised of their life. So we send, pictures, memes, messages. I'll look at someone's Facebook and go, oh, your kids look so cute. I haven't seen them in 5 years, but they're great.
I think they are. Yeah. So, but there's places that I don't even know what they are, but lots of places to go. But Australia and New Zealand, I've been to Australia a couple of times.
Oh wow!
So when I worked for Hasbro in the marketing department, we shot commercials in Australia, and I think part of it was that the advertising agency wanted to travel, and they convinced the marketing department at Hasbro that it was cheaper to travel and shoot in Australia than to shoot in the States, because you didn't have to pay residuals.
Oh, wow.
Because SAG had not gotten to Australia yet.
Okay.
So you could buy out talent and you didn't have to pay them residuals.
Huh.
So I got to shoot on the beach at Bondi and up in Brisbane and stuff, which is, it's like, oh, that's fun. Let's go to Australia.
It's cheaper to go to Ayers Rock. What are we going to do? Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness.
So it's just crazy things you do when you're in toy business.
Oh, I think that's wonderful that you've been able to experience so much with that. I know you were telling me last night that shortly before everything happened with the pandemic, you had actually been in Wuhan for, looking at factories and that sort of thing. And you had been telling me about what it was like to be there.
Yeah. Well, that was a couple of years ago, so it wasn't very close to COVID. But yeah, Wuhan is not the quaint little Chinese town you might think of from the old movies. And people are not running around in gray suits and spouting Mao Zedong. It's an incredibly modern city, and it's a transit point for a lot of industries. And I was going over to see a toy manufacturer about an hour and a half away from Wuhan, but we took a bullet train from Hong Kong, and when you're coming in on a bullet train, you're going 200 miles an hour, and then you start to see row upon row of high-rise buildings, and it's an incredible place. And then we got in a car and drove an hour and a half to another city. But Wuhan's they're beautiful, and these ultra modern high rises, but it's the perfect place to get sick.
Yeah, because it's all just so compacted.
Yeah, it's bigger than New York. It's I think 11 or 13 million people. So and it's not very big. I mean, as far as land mass, but lots of high rises with little tiny apartments in them.
That's amazing. And I imagine the high rises are probably 50 to 60, 70 floors tall.
Yeah, they're big. It's and there's row after row of them. So it's amazing to see.
That's mind blowing. I think it's really special that you got to see that in person and see what progress on the other side of the world looks like.
Yeah, the Chinese are. I mean, the building is crazy. So.
I could imagine. That must have been a technological and cultural shock in itself.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, and the where I went, the little Chinese toy company was compared to Wuhan. It was a little quaint, but they were going to build dolls and stuff, and they were really enthusiastic at the beginning to get going. But so I gotten to do toy wise. I've been gotten to travel quite a bit. We used to do when I was at Hasbro. I did a 9-week travel marathon, and I did 2 round the world trips, one going eastbound, one westbound.
Oh, wow.
Like with a week I was in a place for a week going I left Rhode Island to go to England to shoot a commercial. And then they said, you need to go to Hong Kong. So I went to Hong Kong for a week. And then I came back to Rhode Island and stayed a week. And then I went the other way. I went back to Hong Kong, back to Europe, and then back to home. And then I think in there, I went to LA a couple times. So
that's amazing. I feel like Robin Leach should be, narrating the lifestyles of Hasbro.
It wasn't nearly as glamorous as him, but
oh my God!
Like, by the time the 9 weeks was over, I'm like, it's like, what day is this? Where am I?
Where am I? Who are you? What money am I using?
I had to get back into East Coast time.
Wow. That's really extraordinary and so special that you got to do all of those things.
Yeah, it's great fun.
That's amazing. Donna's asking 3D printing. That's
Yes.
a great question. She says, it must make it so easy to make prototypes now. Would you say that it would be less satisfying than sculpting by hand?
Yes. Although digital's come a long way, this stuff is more accurate, but I'm not sure that it has the same soul that sculptures did. But they're definitely more accurate and precise. I wouldn't know what to. I experimented in the late '90s with learning a little bit of 3D sculpting, but that was really rudimentary. Now the scanning and things like that just have made 3D work so much easier. And the sculptors that are using 3D now are have a lot more experience in manipulating stuff, and so it's much better than it used to be.
That is very, very cool. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do with 3D printing.
Yeah, it does speed up the process. So you can go from 2D, working on a computer to 3D almost, same day. So it's tremendous. I mean, it's a tremendous tool.
Absolutely. Now I have to ask, and it just popped into my head, if someone were going to make a toy of you, how would you want them to kit bash you? And what would you want to look like?
Oh dear, I don't know. I actually had myself scanned.
Did you really?
I did. I went. I was at a Comic-Con, and there was a fellow that had a setup where you could they put you on a little pedestal that rotated, and they had a bank of TVs or cameras, and they rotated you, and then several weeks later they would deliver a likeness. It was pretty cool. It was
wow.
It was. I think they got out of the business of doing it because it was a ceramic. It was a ceramic material. It was done in color, so it was pretty cool. So I have been scanned, and then there was a while back when they had these bigger units that had hundreds of cameras that they demonstrated. I don't know. Maybe you should start with my favorite character of all the Star Wars stuff is C-3PO.
Oh, now why would C-3PO be your favorite?
I'm sorry?
Why would C-3PO be your favorite?
Well, one, he was in all the movies.
Okay.
He was in all my movies. And he was, I don't know, somehow his character, he was just this innocent kind of bumbly character that, saved the day sometimes. And, he's kind of a cool character. Plus he looked, the other characters were a little too much. I wasn't that character. So C-3PO was probably closer to me, a little introverted. And
yes, he was always so worried about everything.
Yeah.
I'm
not getting in line to go up in either of the latest space vehicles. That's not my thing.
Something that I just recently learned about C-3PO is that the actor who played him was pretty much C-3PO's costume was built onto him. He couldn't really get in and out of it very easily. So for 14 to 16 hours a day, he would be in this costume in the middle of the desert or wherever they were shooting. C-3PO, like they started to learn how to make his head so they can move it a little bit. But I mean, when you really learn about the costume, I mean, it was very Edwardian in the sense that he was sewn into his costume.
Yeah, it's amazing he lasted as long as he did.
I have to give him so much credit because that is not easy at all.
No.
And now I know that and I look at it, I'm just blown away.
Yeah. The costume characters, I met a number of them and they went through some really harrowing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I was at a show and one of them was a fellow that was playing a Grimoire guard.
Ooh, uh-huh.
And he did a scene where he would get knocked over. And the Grimoire guards, they had a big suit on, they got a big head, And they had arm extensions, so their arms were much longer than.
That's right.
And he tells this story where they knocked him down a couple times, and then the last time they knocked him down, they called lunch.
No.
And he was laying on the floor, and they forgot he was on the floor.
Oh no.
So luckily somebody went back and saved him, but he could have, it's like, wait a minute.
Fellas, hey fellas. Oh my God, poor thing.
People that are in those costumes, I can imagine Anthony Daniels had to be, and you said being out in the deserts of Tunisia in the heat and being in that metal cage, it's just, I'm surprised he survived.
Well, when you look at the footage, I mean, he was screwed in and short of a blowtorch to weld him in. I mean, he was in it for the long haul.
Yeah. So I admire his tenacity.
Me too.
But he managed to turn it into a career being C-3PO.
He really, really did. And you're right. C-3PO is in every story, and when you look at the canon, he really is such a binder and a connector, those crazy droids,
Yeah. Don't underestimate a droid.
Absolutely not. Oh my gosh. I don't own a Roomba, but if I ever do, I will give it a lot of respect.
Yes. Could turn on you, and then you'd be in trouble.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, treat your machinery with respect, because you just don't know. They may become sentient at some point. And, even my phone can translate for me now. Like, seriously, I had a customer the other day who it was from, this was actually a couple of years ago, who was from China. And we were speaking and translating between Mandarin and English with our phones.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it was so cool. These are the droids we're looking for. And I mean, through the power of Google, I was able to give this person help. And we both understood what we were saying. As soon as we figured out, I was like, are you Mandarin or are you Cantonese? And I would type something out until they said yes. It was very, very cool.
Yeah.
And here we are sitting, you're in Cincinnati, I'm in Toronto, and we're having a real-time conversation.
Yeah.
How neat is that? Guys, do you have any other questions for Jim? I mean, I know a lot of people have been just watching and really, really quiet and hanging off your every word, but this is the time to ask, guys. And there's always a bit of a delay. Everybody, everybody's really into what you're saying. I can tell that, I'm watching everybody watch the show, and it's great, but it's just so funny how, people who normally would comment all of a sudden are just listening.
They're very quiet. The crickets.
Yeah, I get the digital crickets, exactly.
You need a sound effect.
Oh, yeah, you know what?
Cricket.
I didn't come prepared. Well, Jim, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. You're absolutely, absolutely lovely. And it's true. Like, I'm hearing so many people saying that they're too shy. My brother actually is a robot technician. He says, I respect the robots that I work with every day. Thank you for your time and insights, Jim. And thank you, Liz, for making this happen. Take care and be well. Thanks, Chris. But truly, thank you so much for joining us, Jim. You're absolutely wonderful. I appreciate that you would give so much of your time and so much of your stories and experience. And I really hope that we can have you back to hear more, because I know you've got tons of stories.
Oh, well, we'll save that for another time.
Absolutely. I wish you well, and I hope that you do get to go travel a little bit soon.
Yep. First thing's going to be a road trip. That's my least favorite form, but yeah, we'll be back. My next Comic-Con is TammanyCon in New Orleans.
Oh, I love New Orleans.
That's in October. So it's a one-day Saturday thing, and then I'm going to be somewhere in Austin, Texas. So.
Cool. What is the name of the Comic-Con in New Orleans?
It's called TamanyCon, I think is the name of it.
Okay. For all my friends out in New Orleans, go check it out.
Yeah. 9th of October.
9th of October. Okay. All right. Oh, and all of a sudden I want to show Feast. My computer is taking over.
Oh.
Jim, don't go away. I want to keep you for 1 second, but I'm gonna say thank you and so much to you for this evening. You are fantastic. I'm so happy to know you, and you really are part of the toys that have made me. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you in a couple of minutes, Jim.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. But I do, guys, I gotta thank you so much. Every week you guys make this show so amazing. And I can tell that you've really been watching tonight and really paying close attention. And I'm truly glad and grateful that you're doing that, because it lets me know that you're here and that you're watching and that you are actually tuning in. That is a really, really big deal. And, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have such an amazing show to work towards every week. And for that, you really saved me. And I'm really, really grateful for that. And I'm just so excited to see what the future holds. As I always mention every week, Planet Lizzdom is now archived on Twitch on Carney Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. Toronto time. Any shows that you have missed, you can watch again on Carney Show, and it's followed by the Devil's Hour. Jeff Peterson is making some amazing content, so go and check out and see what he is doing. And guys, if you love what I'm doing, feel free to send me a little bit of love at paypal.me/Lizzdom, because it does help pay my internet bills and my streaming devices. And, it helps me make great content for you guys. And we have some amazing guests lined up for you. Next week, we actually have the amazing Mikey $5, and we're going to talk to him about his catnip dispensary, which I am so stoked about. I can't wait to give Jack, my cat, or our cat, a little bit to try. He's a really cool guy, and you're going to love him. But this week has been so special, and I'm so glad that I got to share it with you guys. Make sure you, always tune in, turn on, and take part, because you really never know who is going to land right here on Planet Lizzdom. So I'll see you guys this time next week. Be well, everybody.